Yo, what's up, guys? It's Coach Nate with another episode of Steel Strength Radio, and today I'm going to be talking to you about how to warm up properly. Now, I'm specifically going to be talking about how to warm up for your sets. I'm not going to be talking about doing a general warm up at the beginning of a workout, which I do think is also important. Do a little warm up at the beginning of the workout just to generally get your body moving, get some blood flowing. But today we're going to be talking about how do you warm up for your main barbell sets, when you're doing your heavy squats, deadlift, bench press, shoulder press, things like that. So I made a couple notes that I wanted to share with you guys, okay? So first, let's talk about the why. Why do we want to do warm-up sets? Well, really for two main reasons. Doing warm-up sets leading up to your working sets, being the sets where, those are your heavy sets that you're actually doing for the prescribed sets and reps. Doing warm-up sets at a lighter load than your working sets is going to do two things. Number one, it's going to make sure that you are safe because you're practicing the movement pattern, you're comfortable and efficient with the movement pattern, again, kind of refreshing your mind, your body on that movement pattern. You're getting blood flowing, blood circulating, warming up the joints. And then the last thing is also for maximum performance. So by warming up, you are both going to be safe and strong, and that is what we want. We want you to be safe and we want you to get strong. So how do we do this? Well, generally we only do this for the first exercise of the day. Now this might be a little bit a bit different if we're doing two barbell movements and one is an upper body and one is a lower body. In that case, if we're doing those in the same workout, we would do some warm-up sets for both of those. However, typically we just recommend, if you're doing, say, a lower body day or an upper body day, just doing some warm-up sets for your first exercise of the day. And then for every exercise after that, usually you can jump straight into your working sets. So we're really just talking about the first exercise of the day, which is almost always, based on the way we program, a main lift, a barbell lift, done typically for some at least moderate, if not heavy loads. So we do this on the first exercise only, and we also want to make sure that when you're warming up, you want to have as effective a warm-up as possible while minimizing fatigue. So you can get really warm and get a lot of practice reps if you did, 10 sets of 10 in your warm-ups, but you would be very fatigued and your performance would be diminished on your working sets. Don't forget, the point is both safety and maximum performance. And so you want to make sure that you're not going to do anything like creating a bunch of fatigue that's going to minimize performance. Okay, so just to reiterate one more time, a good warm-up should actually help you lift more weight and reps, not less. All right, now let's talk about those three things that it's going to do for you. It's going to improve blood flow to the joints. It's going to just help you kind of re-practice that movement pattern, get the groove, if you will, and then it's going to get your central nervous system firing up. So let's talk about each of these things. But the first is blood flow. I mean, here's the deal. Pretty much all of you guys know what it's like. You walk into the gym, or maybe you just wake up in the morning, you're kind of like, oh, I'm feeling a little creaky, things are cracking and popping, and you just feel a little achy, and you might feel that way, especially, say, in the cold weather. You're probably less likely to feel like that during the summer, and so we just need to get the body warm. We want to get more blood flowing, create some more heat in the body, and just that is going to make those joints feel better. Okay, so increased blood flow is one of the reasons that we want you guys to warm up. The second thing is basically to get you back in the groove of the movement. Okay, I've been squatting now for 13 years, and so even 13 and a half years. And so even though I'm pretty good at a squat, I know how to squat the same way I know how to ride a bike. It's still helpful for me to do several warm-up sets because it just kind of gets me back in the groove. Sometimes I'll be doing my warm-up sets and things feel a little bit off. I haven't quite found the perfect movement pattern yet, but then after a couple warm-up sets, voila, there it is. My body remembers, and I smooth as butter. It feels great, okay? So if you don't do enough warm-up sets, a lot of times your sets just don't feel good. Like, you can do the movement, but you don't really feel like you're in the groove, okay? And this might be more of a subjective thing than anything, but that stuff matters to me, so I wanted to share that with you. The last thing is it really gets the central nervous system firing. So strength is the ability of the nervous system, which is like the brain, the spinal cord, and then the nerves that go out into the muscles. Strength is the ability of the nervous system to recruit the muscles that you have to do a certain movement. Okay, so part of getting stronger is just building a bigger engine, if you will. So having a bigger muscle to recruit is generally going to lead to more strength. I mean, all things being equal, a larger muscle will create more strength. But also, how you use that muscle is also important. And so, if you just jump straight into your working sets, your nervous system is not like firing and activated the way that it will be after doing several warm-up sets. So you will actually be able to lift heavier weight for more reps when you are warmed up because your nervous system starts firing. And I'll give you a little example of what this might look like. So when I'm picking up my kids, let's say I haven't worked out that day and I pick up my oldest, he's like 55 pounds. I'm like, he's pretty heavy, okay? So I'm like picking him up, kind of like doing a curl, and I'm like, all right, dude, you're heavy. Well, after I've worked out, I literally, I'll pick him up faster. Even if I've done legs, it doesn't matter. But if I've trained upper body, lower body, doesn't matter. I'll pick him up, let's say within a couple hours of having done the workout, and he, not only does he feel light, but I literally pick him up faster. I pick him up with more force, and I'm not even trying to, but I think it's just because my nervous system gets turned on, if you will, from the workout. And so I'm able to exert more force. Now, if I really mustered it up, I could do that from a cold start without having warmed up or worked out or whatever. I could exert that kind of force on him, but it just kind of comes more naturally and more easy after I've worked out. So the point is, you can exert a lot of force even if you haven't warmed up, but it's going to be much easier if you and quite frankly, there's no reason to not warm up, but it's going to be so much easier if you will do those several warm-up sets. Your working sets will feel so much better, I promise. Okay, so what does this actually look like in practice? In practice, what are we supposed to do with this information? Okay, so first thing we do is I recommend 5 to 10 reps with the empty bar. Now, if you're going to be lifting, the bar is 45 pounds or 35 pounds if you use the purple bar that we have at our gym. But the bar is 45 pounds. For example, if you're going to be squatting 135, 200 pounds, 300 pounds, then just go, err on the side of just do 10 reps with the bar, okay? Because 10 reps of the bar is not going to fatigue you. However, if you're going to squat, say 65 pounds, well, I would probably do more 8 or maybe even 5 reps with the bar because your first warm-up set is already pretty close to your working set. Because remember, the goal is to get you safe and get you strong while minimizing fatigue. And so if you're, let's say you're going to squat 55 pounds and you're for 5 reps and you're doing 10 reps with a 45 pound bar, 45 for 10 might be harder than 55 for 5. So you got to use your brain on this one, okay? So anyway, do 5 to 10 reps with the empty bar. And look, I don't care how strong you are. I do not care how strong you are, with the exception of the deadlift, which we will start at 95 to 135 pounds, just so we can get some plates on there so the bar is just not resting flat on the floor. With the exception of the deadlift, I pretty much recommend everybody, no matter how strong you are, start with the empty bar. Now, if you're crazy strong, you're squatting 400, 500, 600 pounds, then yeah, maybe we want to just start you off at 95 or 135 pounds. But we're working with everyday people here. Most of our people are not lifting that much weight. Start with the empty bar, okay? So start with the empty bar, do 5 to 10 reps. And then usually I like to do 2 to 4 warm-up sets, okay? Now, generally 2 to 4 warm-up sets. And you want to do as few sets as possible, but as many as you need to feel ready for your sets. So, and it's kind of a spectrum here, okay? In terms of whether you would want to do more or less. So reasons you'd want to do more warm-up sets, maybe closer to 4 and maybe even break the rules or, break the recommendations and go a little bit higher than that. 1 second, little coffee break. Okay, some of the reasons, the stronger you are. So if you're going to be squatting 275 pounds, you probably want to do a warm-up with the empty bar. you probably want to do 135. You might want to do 185. You might want to do 225, and that's your 4 warm-up sets, okay? So like the stronger you are, I would not recommend going from like 45 pounds to 275 pounds. Like that's not much of a warm-up, okay? But if you're going to be squatting 65 pounds, you might only need one warm-up set. You might only need to do 45. Or your first warm-up set might be a body weight squat, and then you might do the bar for your second set, and then you might go into 65. So basically the heavier load that you are lifting, generally the more warm-up sets you want to take to get there. When you're doing those multiple sets, you kind of want to take, they don't need to be perfect, but kind of evenly spaced out. Like the example I just gave, if you're doing 275 pounds, maybe you want to start with the bar. You can make a big jump on your first one because the bar was pretty easy. You do 135, and then from there you're just adding 25s and 45s. So you go to 225. Excuse me, 130 bar, 135, 185, 225, and then you do your first working set at 275. So you want to make sure it's evenly spaced. For a smaller example, let's say you're squatting 75 pounds. Maybe you do a set of bodyweight squats, maybe you do the barbell, and then maybe you do 65 pounds, okay? So you just want evenly spaced warm-up sets, roughly evenly spaced, doesn't need to be exact. So anyway, reasons to do more would be you are stronger. If you are older / if you have more joint issues, if it's colder outside, if you've got an injury you're working around, those would be reasons to do more warm-up sets. Usually, the less strong you are, the younger you are, maybe the warmer it is outside, and if you're injury-free, those would be reasons you could probably get away with doing fewer warm-up sets and it still be, just as good as if you were to do more. But you just a lot of it is just going by feel. And it's also going to differ between exercises. So for example, I find, this is for me personally, that I do well with more warm-ups on the squat. Sometimes I'll warm up 3, 4, 5 warm-up sets before I do my heavy squats. However, with the deadlift, even though I can deadlift more than I squat, a lot of times I'll only do, 2 warm-up sets, and then I'll just jump right to it. I've just found that I don't need as many warm-up sets for my deadlift. So you just need to figure out, a lot of it's just personal preference too, just what is your experience, so this is something, I'm giving you this information so you can take it and implement it and figure out what works best for you, because ultimately you're the one that's going to know your body, okay? So let's see. The other thing I wanted to share with you, okay? So we went over, you start with an empty bar, and then we do 2 to 4 warm-up sets. And the last thing I want to share with you is, in terms of my prescription or recommendations, is to decrease the reps as you approach the weight. So let's say, back to the 275 pound example. Let's say I'm going to do 275 for sets of 5. Well, I will do 10 reps with the bar, and then I might go 8 reps with 135. I might go 5 reps at 185, and then I might go 3 at 225, and then I'll go into the 275 for 5. So notice I was decreasing the reps. And the reason for that is those lower weight warm-up sets, that's usually when I do more reps, those are really more about the blood flow. That's the way I think about it. It's more about the blood flow, just going through the movement, getting back used to the pattern, getting in the groove again. And then as I start adding load, I'm not doing as many reps, so it's still going to be increasing blood flow some, but at that point, I've kind of gotten the blood pumping from my general warm-up and my first couple lighter warm-up sets, but as the load increases in the warm-up, I start decreasing the reps. And the reason for that is, it allows my body to start handling some heavier loads. It gets the nervous system turned on and fired up without creating a lot of fatigue. Okay, so generally you want to decrease reps as you approach your working set weight. And that is why I gave the example, if you're going to be, handling, say, 65 pounds for your squat, you may not want to do 10 reps with 45 pounds on your warm-up, because it's just going to, it's so close in difficulty to what you're going to be doing with 65 that you're probably creating some unnecessary fatigue. So maybe you would just do 5 reps with the 45-pound bar. But that's the point, okay? The farther you are away from your working set weight, you can do some higher reps, maybe closer to the 10 rep range. But then as you approach it, drop the reps down. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you guys what I just told you, give you a quick summary. and then I'm going to give you guys some bonus information. So why do we warm up? We do these warm-up sets for the main lifts for maximum safety and maximum strength, okay? We do this for the first exercise of the day. Unless it's a full body day, we're doing an upper and a lower, then we'll do it for the first upper body, first lower body movement of the day, okay? We want to warm up as effectively as possible while creating as little fatigue as possible, okay? And we do this in order to improve blood flow, get the joints feeling better, to get back into that groove so we feel very comfortable with the movement that we're doing, comfortable and confident, and then it gets the nervous system fired up so the heavier loads don't feel quite as heavy. Generally, you're going to start with an empty bar, somewhere between 5 and 10 reps, and then overall you're going to do 2 to 4 warm-up sets before your working set, and then you're going to decrease the reps as you approach the working set weight again in order to continue to help you get warmed up, get your nervous system firing, practice the movement pattern, handle the heavier loads without creating fatigue. Okay, I want to share with you guys 2 bonus things that you can try. If you haven't been following any kind of plan for your warm-ups, if you haven't really had an idea of what to do, start with what I just told you. Use that, okay? It's gonna help tremendously. But here's a couple bonus things that I'll use from time to time. The first bonus is doing a heavy single right before your working set. So sometimes I will, let's say again, the 275 pound example, sometimes I will, you say I did 220, so like the warm-up example I just gave earlier, okay? Working up to 275, you did 45 for 10, you do 135 for 8, 225 for 5, excuse me, I'm messing this up. 45 for 10, 135 for 8, 185 for 5, 225 for 3, and then I might go 245 or 255 for a single. That's 1 rep. Just to hit it, to handle a load that's very close to my working set. 1 rep is going to create like no fatigue, especially if I'm doing 275 for reps. Then like 245, 255 will feel just fine for 1 rep, but it will be, again, just kind of an extra boost to help fire up the nervous system. This is something that I'll use sometimes, especially when I'm handling very heavy loads. This has helped me out tremendously at times during my very heavy strength workouts. Okay, the next thing is actually called like an over warm up or like overshooting your working weight. So this is kind of like the concept of, in baseball where you put the donut on the bat, you're swinging it, getting ready, and then you're ready to step up to the plate, hit the bat on the ground, the donut falls off, and that bat feels like you're just waving around a feather, okay? It feels incredibly light. And that's kind of the same concept of this overshooting or over warming up, if you will. So if you want to play around with your warm-up and see if this will work for you, this is what you can do. Let's say you're doing 275 for your working set. Say you're doing 275 for 5 reps or 8 reps or something like that. Well, you might actually go, as part of your warm-up, you might go 45 for 10, 135 for 8, 185 for 5, 225 for 3, and then you might go, say 255 for 1, and then you might go 285 for 1. Even though it is heavier than what you're going to be doing for reps, it's still just 1 rep, and so you're probably not going to create much, if any, fatigue from that. But by doing that, sometimes that, and it could be more of a mental thing than anything, but sometimes handling a load that's even heavier than your working set is going to make that working set weight feel a lot lighter. If you just hit 285, 295 for 1, that's going to feel really heavy. 275 is not going to feel as bad. So it's kind of that concept of, swinging a bat with a donut and taking it off. So that's your bonus content for today. I've given you guys a lot of information in this. I hope you find it helpful. If there's anything specific that you would like to learn about, any kind of content I could make, questions I could answer, topics I can speak to or address, please let me know. I love making content to help educate, motivate, and encourage you guys. Take care.